All right, welcome to another edition of DJ Football. Let's get you some updates on what you can do with deciding your lineup each week, and then also what to do on game days. So, deciding your lineup each week. Injuries. If you have a player that just got injured the week before and he's active this week, usually that means it's a risky play putting him in. A lot of people will recommend you do this, but make sure you understand what kind of injury they had. If they sprained their pinky finger and they're a running back, that probably won't affect their running too much. You're pretty safe playing that individual. But if they ended up, pulling a hamstring or spraining their ankle, that could play a big part in their performance or their amount of volume they're getting from their coach. And so my rule of thumb, I don't play players if they just came off a serious injury. And so that's tough when you've got, and now this will bite you. It did to me last year. One time, I didn't play LaShawn McCoy after a big thumb injury, and he pulled off like 35 points. Man, that happens, bummer. But usually, that's a good rule of thumb to abide by, is to not play a player if they're coming off a major injury. I've done it 100 times in the past and learned from it that you don't play them because they're going to sit on the sidelines 90% of the time. Sometimes the coach will say they're active and they don't even play. And you're going, hey, where's my all-star? And then you find out later the coach decided not to put him in because of the injury. It's still nagging at them. So rule of thumb, don't play players if they were injured the week before. Awesome. Also, deciding your lineup, matchups. Take a look at who your player's playing against, what the defense is, so that you can make a decision of who you want to put into your lineup based on whether the defense they're playing against is any good. So if you've got a wide receiver that's playing against the worst secondary in the league, that's going to be a good guy to put in. Chances are he's going to get a lot of points. Same with your running backs. If your running back, or if they're playing against the worst defensive line in the league, and all these teams get great points against them rushing yards, it's worth putting that running back in. So take a look at your matchups. If you've got two equal level skill players, definitely would put the one in that has a good matchup. Now, as far as your all-stars, they're all-stars for a reason. Usually they're going to play good against any team. Be careful about benching them if they're playing against a good team. I still think it's worth playing them unless you have multiple all-stars that you can rotate through. Awesome. And then let's see here, streaming or rotating defenses and kickers. So this is a big deal. As far as defenses and kickers, they're almost always at the end of your drafting. I would recommend they be last. The last two picks are your defense and your kicker. Because unless you get a killer deal on like the number one kicker and number one defense. But usually what I do is I stream my defenses and my kickers. I rotate them. Every week I'll pick up the next best defense on the waiver wire and play that one. Because what happens is with defenses, it's really dependent, their points is dependent on the offense they're playing against. If they're playing against a crummy offense, they're going to do great. If they're playing against a rock star offense, I don't care if you've got the best defense in the league, if they're playing against the Patriots or the Green Bay Packers or the Atlanta Falcons, you probably don't want to play them because the offense is going to score anyways. And so I always stream my defenses. There are a few exceptions to that rule, but streaming them or rotating them out with a team that's playing against one of the worst offenses in the league is super beneficial. As far as a kicker, I always pick up a kicker that's playing against a bad defense because that means my offense is going to score more points, meaning I get more field goals and more extra points to really rack up more points than my kicker. That's a good strategy you can use, and hopefully that really benefits you. It also keeps you from having to waste an early draft pick on them during your draft. Awesome. All right, now game days. Game days are Thursdays, Sundays, and Mondays. We all know this, right? Usually one game on Thursday, one game on Monday. Sometimes those get added games to them. The bulk of your team is going to play on Sunday, though, right in the middle. So know the game days. One tip I have for you, one vital tip that I struggle with holding to myself every single week. Don't change your lineup on game day. Don't do it. Thursday night is so hard for me Thursday night comes, I've got one guy who plays on that team, and I want to get the points he earns. And I always, on occasion, I'll throw him in there at the last second to say, what if he does good? What if he does good? You made the choices earlier on in the week based on actual data and information. Stick with how you feel, unless, the exception to that rule is unless there's something that changes. Unless there's some valid information that comes in that makes it viable to make that change on game day, I recommend sticking with your lineup until the games are over. Because you go in there, it's super tempting to make your roster adjustments on game day because they're playing and you want those points. Don't do it. It will come back and bite you. It's done it to me 100 times. So, awesome. Hopefully those are super helpful tips. And, also a great tip. If your league allows options, some leagues allow you to have options so that after the game's already started, or even after the game finishes, you can throw in one of your bench players. If that's allowed, know that so that you can get the benefit of adding those bench players that you sat that did great. Usually standard leagues are no options available, and so once the game starts, your players are locked in and you can't adjust them. So make sure that you understand that rule and that you play by it to get a great advantage. Thanks so much. All right, you have a great time and win your league. DJ Football out.